Talking with the experts.
Welcome to Talking with the Experts, where we believe that success is a journey, and every journey is easier with help from friends. That's why we bring you top-notch experts and real business heroes eager to share their lessons from the road to success. We delve into new topics each week: effective marketing strategies, innovative problem-solving, financial planning, and team building. We tackle everything you need to know to grow your business and keep it thriving. Whether you dream about launching your first startup or a business veteran looking to shake things up, we've got you covered. With each episode, you'll gain knowledge, boost your confidence, and be inspired to take action. So, grab a coffee, make yourself comfortable, and join our exciting journey. You're not alone in this. We're here, guiding you, cheering for you, and celebrating each milestone. Let's turn your business dreams into reality, starting today. Here is your host, Rose Davidson.
Talking with the experts.
In episode 485, Bryan Kuderna shares with us his insights from his new book, What Should I Do With My Money? Economic Insights to Build Wealth Amid Chaos.
We start with, I often tell people, you don't know what you don't know. So start with a little bit of knowledge and then go out and you can start to kind of vet, who should be on my team. Who should be my accountant? Who should be my attorney? Who should be my financial advisor? Who should be my insurance agent? And then it comes to kind of gauging a little bit, both, knowledge and then just trust, who's somebody that I can get along with, I can have a frank conversation with. And I think that's key. And that just goes back to basic relationships. But from a knowledge standpoint, you want to see credentials. I think that's huge. And it is tricky in our field. There's just endless acronyms and credentials out there. We, in my industry, we have the CFP, the Certified Financial Planner. That's kind of like the gold standard.
Talking with the experts.
Hello and welcome to Talking with the Experts. I'm your host, Rose Davidson from rosedavidson.com. Talking with the Experts is all about business by business owners for business owners. You can find it on all good podcasting streaming platforms and on YouTube. Now, let me ask you this question. What should I do with my money? I don't know. I'd like to spend it on a yacht or something. But my next guest, Bryan Kuderna, is going to share with us his insights from having built a top nationally recognised financial services firm over the past 15 years. He will also share his advice from his new book, What Should I Do With My Money? Economic Insights to Build Wealth Amid Chaos. Welcome, Bryan. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here, Rose. Thanks for having me.
So tell me a little bit about yourself and about the book. So how did you get doing what you're doing and why the book?
Sure. So I'm from the U.S. I'm born and raised in Jersey, and that's where I work here on the East Coast. And got into the financial world in 2008, right out of college as a financial advisor. And I always had a passion for writing, even from when I was young and writing for like my high school newspaper. So that was always something that I had, I think I was pretty good at, and I had a natural affinity for it. But as you get into the financial realm and being an entrepreneur, everything starts to kind of take over. But that was always in the back of my mind, and I wanted to be able to merge the two at some point. So I did make writing a part of my whole marketing plan and doing expert commentary, media appearances, a lot of stuff that was kind of fun and took me out of the day-to-day financial planning role. And then just this year in February 2023, I was able to release my latest book, which is What Should I Do With My Money? And the subtitle is Economic Insights to Build Wealth Amid Chaos. And so that was about a 3-year project with McGraw Hill, awesome publisher. And so we put that together. I think there's a lot of, great content in there to help people out.
Yeah. So what could we find in the book?
Yep. So what it is I'm essentially answering, the motives behind why people do what they do with their money. So it's not just personal finance. While the last chapter of the book actually is, we do get into a lot of financial planning tips. The bulk of the book gets into, macro and micro economies, how the two are interconnected, and what all the different, opportunities are for the future in our economy, and also all the challenges that we face right now and that are, going to be here to stay. So what I try and do is you'll see the opening of the book, I define wealth. And I don't just look at it in a monetary sense. I say, the origination of the word wealth, if we look at the etymology, it comes from an old English word, weal, W-E-A-L, which means well-being. And so that's where I kind of lay the stage that all these people, these 8 billion people in the world that are pursuing wealth, really all they're doing is pursuing well-being. And so we look at, how does money fit into that context? And then what are all the other major sectors of the economy, from entitlements, education, environment, big technology? How do all these things kind of play into, us all just trying to increase our well-being?
So how does the micro and macro environment, how does that intertwine? How, people think of it as two separate entities. So how can they be together?
That's a great point. And that's something that I try to kind of dispel that myth to a sense, because everyone, or not everyone, but a lot of people will say, I'm just kind of in this rat race. I'm just, a cog in this monster machine. And, I'm just a kind of a victim or a beneficiary of just the circumstances of this gigantic macroeconomy. And it may feel like that at sometimes. I totally get that. But in reality, like every one of us creates a microeconomy, whether it's our household or our business. And then we filter up to a slightly larger one, whether it's our neighborhood, our town, our city, then to our state or our territory, then to our country. And so it just kind of keeps building on itself. And each one of these kind of hits a tipping point of a microeconomy becoming a macroeconomy. But the macro is just nothing more than a sum of its parts. And you can see that very easily here in the States, how quickly we reelect and reappoint, different public officials based on what all these little microeconomies are feeling at that time. And so that's where I draw, the connection between kind of kitchen table conversations all the way up to like, what is the heartbeat of our nation? And you see that they're so close together, whether it's how I'm preparing for retirement or how much college is costing for my child, to, geopolitics of America importing oil from Venezuela or no longer Russia or Saudi Arabia or something. These are all just economic decisions with economic motives. And so that's where I think people need to kind of keep their finger on the pulse there. And then when they do, there's a lot of great opportunities that they could take advantage of, when they're actually in the know.
Yeah, they're valid points too, because you can't really have one without the other, although people try to keep them separate. So Bryan, what should I be doing with my money?
And yep, so that's like the $1 million question. So I think the first thing is, and this is what I do with clients also, is we need to look at what makes you tick. And that's why I go back to wealth and I'm like, we're not just here to accumulate a fortune, because, and I point that out in the intro to the book, it's what should I do with my money? It's not how much money should I have, because I've met people that retire on a small fixed income, not a lot of assets, and they are the happiest people in the world. And an amazing day for them is going for a picnic with their spouse, down the street. Excuse me. Then I've met other people that have, millions upon millions upon millions, and they feel like they never have enough. Mm-hmm. And they come into my office and they're like, Bryan, are we ever going to be able to retire? I don't see how we're going to do it. And it's this kind of conundrum of like, well, we got to look at your lifestyle and what makes you comfortable. So we start there, and then we kind of work our way back from the end in mind to today. So we think about, what do you want to do for your family? When do you want to retire? What do you want to leave behind? What's your legacy? And then we bring that all the way back to your monthly budget and say, how much are you bringing in? How much is going out? Let's look at, the inflows and outflows, so we can start to kind of draw down some of those goals and concerns. So And I'm kind of speaking high level, but that's the beginning. The next thing I use is a 4-step financial planning process. This is applicable to everybody, whether it's a business owner, normal W-2 employee or what have you. Number one is protection first. So I always say you're only as strong as your weakest link. We can make all the money in the world, but if we have one bad lawsuit or one bad accident, we can watch the whole thing go up in smoke. So we got to kind of, dot all our I's, cross all our T's, whether that's insurance, contracts, estate planning, things like that, we'll really take a close look at. Then we want to have adequate liquidity. We want to have a nice rainy day fund, cash, to take advantage of opportunity. Third thing is going to be addressing debt. It's almost like we're trying to build a financial plan, but if we have a leak in the boat that's getting bigger and bigger, we're not really getting anywhere. It's kind of dragging us down. And then the fourth one is really getting into investing in growth. And a lot of people see me, oh, you're the CFP, tell me which stock or which fund to invest in. Certainly do a ton of that. But if we put the cart before the horse, that's where lots of times mistakes happen. And so that's why, that 4-step process is what I follow.
It's an interesting process too. And I think, it should be written down somewhere other than in your book, and people should follow it all the time. There should be a cheat sheet available somewhere. Check it off as we go.
And that's kind of the thing. And I have put that out there, that process. And a lot of people, and I get into this quite a bit in the book, they always want to see something that's kind of, sexy. What's the new great tip or something I haven't heard of, or, I want to be able to tell my friends, you got to hear this. Sometimes finance can be boring, and that's okay. And it's like, we have to embrace that this is a long journey, and it's just like exercising or diet where, I could show you kind of the new fad, work out in 10 minutes and try this new pill or whatever and get ripped in 10 days. And it sounds so exciting, but really what we see withstood the test of time is, follow a sound, clean diet, exercise, 60 minutes a day, nothing earth shattering, but that's what works. And it's the same thing, lots of times when we get into finance.
Yes, I'm not a good person with finance. I think it's made round to go round. My husband said it's flat to stack. so we have our differences about how money should be stored and spent. But for the most part, after 31 years, I think he's just used to it. So it's really cool.
Yeah, as long as you guys can kind of make it work.
That's it. So I guess, what would be some really strategic moves that a business owner could use to, make themselves more financially wealthy?
Yep. So, and that's really where I try and 250 pages here in the book, try and kind of outline that, pretty much everything that you need to know about money. And I think for a business owner, that's what it starts with, is increasing your knowledge, and not only increasing your knowledge, but the people around you. Because if my business is, designing and manufacturing these widgets, and that's what I'm an expert at, that's what I should be focusing most of my time on. And so I can't do it all as a business owner. And myself, I realize this too. I'm an entrepreneur, and you have a lot of different things kind of tugging you in different directions. So I think getting a cursory knowledge of finance, of economics, so that you can have these conversations and you can make judgments and decisions is step one. Step two is knowing that, we can't know it all. And we start with, I often tell people, you don't know what you don't know. So start with a little bit of knowledge, and then go out and you can start to kind of vet, who should be on my team, who should be my accountant, who should be my attorney, who should be my financial advisor, who should be my insurance agent. And then it comes to kind of gauging a little bit, both, knowledge and then just trust, who's somebody that I can get along with, I can have a frank conversation with. And I think that's key. And that just goes back to basic relationships. But from a knowledge standpoint, you want to see credentials. I think that's huge. And it is tricky in our field. There's just endless acronyms and credentials out there. We in my industry, we have the CFP, the Certified Financial Planner. That's kind of like the gold standard. Same with accounting. You have the CPA, the Certified Public Accountant. So, you want to look for these things where it's like, all right, that professional has done their work. They've done their time. And another thing too, I tell people, I don't know if this is kind of the answering the question, but some of my best clients have actually had an interview process for hiring me as an advisor, which is interesting because it's like, you know what? I, in essence, am going for a job interview, and they are effectively, in that small relationship, my boss. As a financial advisor, I'm at their service to manage their plan, and they have the right at any point to fire me or to change the capacity I work in and hire a different advisor. So it was interesting. Very early on, I had a very wealthy gentleman sit down with me, and he had actually a list of questions. And he was asking things like, why did you get into this business? Where do you put your money? How long have you been doing this for? Can you give us a few references? What's the biggest mistake you've made? And I was like, wow, I'm actually like in an interview right now. But it was interesting that this guy that had so much money and obviously a lot of business experience, that this was just kind of natural to him. And so I encourage a lot of people, approach maybe some of these situations like that.
It's really great advice, because we don't often interview our financial people. We just go to them and hopefully they'll do the right thing by us. But I think if we got into the habit of interviewing them, there'd be less people being burned by so-called experts.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, you see things like, I had interviewed a person on my podcast that wrote the book. It was, I think, Monster of Wall Street on Bernie Madoff, which is now like a big Netflix documentary. And that was the key thing. I mean, you saw this guy that, had the biggest Ponzi scheme in history, and his clients were some of the wealthiest people in the world. And they're like, how did this happen? Like, this was just a huge facade, a huge scam from day one. And the reality was, a lot of people were just like, oh, Sue and Joe, they work with them. Let's go. We'll move all our money. And the lack of due diligence was just astounding. And so I think that's the thing, is if we just take a moment and say, let me get to know this person, then that can lots of times throw up the red flags or give us a sense of comfort, and we can move forward. But so many people just skip that step. They just say, okay, that's the guy because it's the guy, and they just roll with it. And I think with such important issues like your money, take a moment and do some homework. There's a poll I saw here in the States, and it's probably applicable everywhere, that the average American spends more time planning their vacations than they do their finances.
Yeah, I can get that. I reckon that's quite true.
Which I can too. I mean, vacation planning is probably more fun. But I mean, it's just kind of, take, that half hour, that 45 minutes a month, and say, hey, how am I doing? And I think you'll be rewarded very nicely. And then the vacation planning gets even more fun.
Absolutely. And I think, a lot of those scams that are going around, I mean, I know they're really prevalent here and preying, on the less fortunate and, the elderly. But a lot of these money scams, people they think, I'm going to get rich really quick. And that's all they think about. They don't think about the consequences, or they don't do their due diligence and find out if this is actually a thing. And people have lost hundreds of thousands of dollars and, their life savings. And for what? Because, they've been too quick to jump on someone's bandwagon thinking that it's a great thing because they've made it look so pretty.
Yeah. Yeah, it's exactly right. I mean, it just goes back to, if it's too good to be true, then it very well may be. And there's another section in my book on technology, which I put kind of the two sides of the coin there. You have endless opportunity for growth and for leverage from everything from what we understand right here now to the future of AI, to the investment opportunities within technology, and also with the parts that go into tech. There's so much great things going on. On the other side, there is just endless opportunity for bad actors out there to take advantage of people. And that I spend time in that because, you've referenced these scams and things. There's scams where people are, they're knowingly taking advantage of someone like Bernie Madoff. And then there's the scams where, I'm going to take advantage of you and you're not even going to know it because I'm hiding behind this wall of technology. And that's where you're seeing all these ransomware attacks, all these email scams that are just rampant. Social media scams now become very common. So it's like we have to have our defense up almost at all times, or, we could, get injured without even knowing it happened. And that happens a lot with these tech scams, that it's only until 2 months later, I ran my credit report to buy a new car. And I find out, wow, somebody's been doing all this with my credit card or my bank account or what have you. And it's because of the way that we can just kind of communicate information so quickly on the web, and we can do a lot of it anonymously, is somewhat frightening. So it's this constant paradox of like, we add a new element to the economy that is able to supercharge the economy, but it can also polarize the good and the bad. And so those are some of the things that throughout the book I kind of highlight, that yin and yang, that we have to be aware of both sides.
Absolutely. I totally agree. I mean, there's a lot of cyber attacks on businesses and banks and so forth here, and credit card companies and health insurance companies. And, to get all of these, approval to join whatever, you've got to provide your driver's license or a birth certificate or whatever. And unfortunately, I was one of the people who was affected by one of the cyber attacks on a credit card company. And the scammers have got my driver's license. So now I've got to go and buy a new driver's license. But the point being is that, I get really annoyed with these companies because they don't have the protections for their clients in place. And I think there should be heavier fines for corporations and organizations that don't have these. I mean, even our state government was cyber attacked. They stole the scammers stole school records of the students, like some 5,000-6,000 students and their parents. So honestly, even the state governments aren't immune to these cyber attacks, and it's terrifying.
It is, and it's a great point you brought up there too, because a lot of people ask me, what's the solution there? And what I've suggested really, I think, needs to happen, and it's not a cure-all, but it's an improvement, is a public-private partnership for cybersecurity. So if you look at, health insurance, and always the ongoing debate, do we privatize health insurance? Do we socialize it? Or do we have some sort of kind of combination of the two where we can just assure people at least a baseline amount of coverage? I think that there needs to be something similar with cyber, because if I'm a small business owner that's employing, 10 employees, and we all have to wear a lot of different hats, and every day we're just trying to help our customers and turn a profit and so on and so forth. And I've got all these other different things that I have to, remain compliant with. And then on top of all that, you're telling me I need to have all my systems squared away so that I could prevent some genius hacker over in Russia in a garage that might just be trying to get in a back door somewhere. That's a tall order for a small business owner. So I think that that's where almost like we can say, all right, well, you can participate in this, government health insurance plan if you cannot afford it on your own. There needs to be something where the government can say, okay, as a small business owner, you registered your company. Now we're going to provide this series of firewalls or different tech products and protocols so that at least you have adequate coverage to a certain amount. And then if you want to go above and beyond that and have your own security team, more power to you. But without that, there is so much exposure there, which is frightening. And the reason I say that's not a cure-all and it still needs a lot of, effort and investment. Like you mentioned, I mean, we got the United States government here. You think, okay, we're good to go. The U.S. government's been hacked a number of times. And so you think of that and it's like, well, where is the safe zone? But that's just kind of always trying to stay just one step ahead of the curve, and no different than anything else in investments or economics.
Absolutely, yeah. It is absolutely terrifying, especially for the elderly, when, most of them wouldn't know how to turn on a computer, let alone, check their banking on their phone. So, yeah, and keep their things safe. It's terrifying. Okay, Bryan, I loved the concept of your book. I think it's absolutely wonderful. And where can people find the book at?
Yep. So again, it's called What Should I Do with My Money? Economic Insights to Build Wealth Amid Chaos. It's now available in paperback, Kindle, and also audiobook. So it's wherever books are sold. You can head over to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or any other seller. It'll be there. And you can also go to bryankuderna.com. And so that's BRYANKUDERNA.com. And you can find the book there. A lot of my latest research, articles, my podcast. You can even sign up for a weekly newsletter I have that's called Weekly Wealthy Wisdoms. It's a free newsletter where I just put out a few points of things I've found that I think can help your week get off to a good start. So, and then also I'm anywhere on social media. If you just look up B Kuderna, you'll find me, and I'm happy to talk and answer questions and so on and so forth.
Good. And tell me a bit about your podcast.
Yep. It's called the Kuderna Podcast. So that's just my name, the Kuderna Podcast. And again, similar to the book, it goes back to achieving wealth in its original meaning, a state of well-being. So you'll hear from me directly as I impart some economic current event tips, some financial planning tips. And then we also have an array of guests on there, from professional athletes, economists, business icons, authors, all different people that are trying to be healthy and wealthy and have some really cool insights. So definitely check it out anywhere you get your podcasts, and also on YouTube, the YouTube channel, the Kuderna Podcast, and you can watch it there as well.
Wonderful. It's been an absolute pleasure learning from you today. And I love the book, and I think I'm going to go and have a look at it and then see if I can.
That's it right there.
Good. Yep. I'll see if I go and grab a copy sometime at my local bookstore. Bryan, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you were to give some wisdom to someone, what might that be?
Yeah, thank you for having me, Rose. And some wisdom that I could leave with someone is, it's a great question. There's a lot of different things coming to mind here. I think I open up my book with a quote from Aristotle, and I always like reading philosophy. And as kind of a quick sidebar, I was actually just reading Letters from a Stoic by Seneca, and he gets into kind of the study of liberal arts versus the study of philosophy. And he essentially says, what's the point of knowing everything if you don't know yourself? What's the point of knowing the greatest subjects, the greatest knowledge, if you can't control your own emotions, your own mental health? And so I think that's kind of a wisdom I like to tell people, study a little bit of philosophy, try and be introspective to a sense, and get to know yourself. And then what I was going to say with Aristotle, that opening quote is that wealth by its, and I'm paraphrasing here, is that wealth by itself is nothing. It's just a means to an end. So it's that end that we're all pursuing. And you can read the formal quote by getting my book, but I think that's what people need to realize is money does not buy happiness. It just buys things. And it's the things that ultimately we need to identify, and then see how can we go get, ultimately what makes us content and fulfilled.
Oh, absolutely. Words of wisdom to live by. I think that was absolutely excellent. Thank you for sharing that. Bryan, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Yep, you got it, Rose.
See ya.
See ya.
You've been listening to Talking with the Experts, hosted by Rose Davidson. Make sure you have a look at our back catalogue over at talkingwiththeexperts.com. And be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss out on any episode. We look forward to your company next time. Talking with the Experts.